over to Lance.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I say mindful, you say breathing. Mindful, breathing. First of all, I just want to say thank you to the Teaching Artists Think Tank for the whole crew. Thank you so much for inviting me to share a little bit about mindfulness and self-care to support each other. Self-care is so important, whether we're going through shelter in grace, I like to call it, or dealing with the COVID-19. Your health is your wealth, no matter what circumstances or the conditions. So now we're being offered an opportunity to take a deeper dive in how do we take care of ourselves, because we can only give what we got, right? And we have to learn and be reminded of putting on our oxygen mask first before we help others. And that is self-care. That is being mindful. That is having a practice to understand what am I needing and what can I give, and finding the balance, the boundary, to navigate all of that in riding the wave of unknown, right? So thank you for allowing me to be here to share with you. Yeah. Everybody just take a moment. We're riding the wave of the unknown. Good. And then how about this? Just hold it here and let's have a moment of our screenshot in real time. Thank you for that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with my slideshow presentation. Share screen. Let's bring up this one. Okay, and then I'm going to go to slideshow, play from start. Okay, so here we go, everybody. I'm calling this the practice of mindfulness and well-being in the face of shelter and grace. Let's see, in this webinar, I will discuss how mindfulness and self-care practices can help reduce stress and promote well-being. It is my hope that you discover your own insights and ways to be more thoughtful and healthier, one breath at a time. Your breath is your power. Go ahead and take a deep breath and inhale and exhale. So I have a couple of questions that relate to self-care and wellness. And this is called the hand-on-heart exercise. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a couple of questions back to back, and then I'm going to ask you if this relates to you to go ahead, or if this is true for you, to go ahead and put your hand on your heart. Here we go. So let me read the first couple of questions, and then I'll ask you to put your hand on your heart if this rings true for you. Have you experienced worrying about the future, or have experienced a hard time focusing or completing tasks? Put your hand on your heart if this is true for you. Take a deep breath. Thank you. Another couple of questions I have, if this rings true for you, to put your hand on your heart. Put your hand on your heart if you find yourself eating or snacking more frequently, or if you find yourself watching or listening to a lot of news or TV, Netflix. Put your hand on your heart. Take a deep breath and release. Thank you. Just a couple more questions I have. If this rings true for you, put your hand on your heart. If you have experienced sleeping difficulties, feeling anxious, stressed, irritated, or sad during the shelter in place, go ahead and put your hand on your heart. Take a deep breath and exhale. One last question I'd like to ask. If you've recently experienced getting really, really upset at work, with a friend, partner, or a family member, go ahead and put your hand on your heart. Take a deep breath and release. Thank you. So I like to transition into a guided mindful moment. I'm going to invite you to, if you feel comfortable, to go ahead and close your eyes. If you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, you can do a soft, gentle gaze just so that you maybe see right down in front of you or your hands on your lap. Just do whatever feels comfortable for you, as this guided meditation is to just help us land and just be more present. I'm going to tap the bell. Let the sound of the bell call you in for a moment and be the whisperer to invite you to go inward and connect with your breath for just a moment. Slowly breathing in and slowly breathing out at your own pace. You may notice the rise and fall of your chest or stomach. And just be one with that as you're connecting. And just really dropping in, releasing thoughts of the past or thoughts of the future, or even thoughts in the here and now. Allow the mind to have a break and receive oxygen to the mind as you're breathing in and breathing out at your own natural pace.
Claro que sí.
Welcome to the moment. We're doing a mindful moment. Please feel free to join us. Glad you're here. Thank you. Slowly breathing in and out. If the mind wanders in a thought, you can say thinking and come back to the breath. Breathing in and out at your own pace. Just noticing the body presence, following the oxygen in and out. And just really being here now and now again. And be the witness of your presence through breathing. Next, I would like to invite you to open up the heart space of grace and gratitude on this Wellness Wednesday. And just take in for a moment, what are you grateful for that you have in your life? What are you thankful for that you have in your life? Whether it's a person, whether it's a thing, whether it's something at home, or it's some kind of a resource that you have access to that serves you in some way. Whatever that is, acknowledge that in this moment. Be with that as a way of saying thank you to it, as we do have a lot. And sometimes we forget to acknowledge that. So just be with that. What are you grateful for and thankful for that you have in your life? It makes life a little more convenient, makes life a little bit more successful, or it brings you joy. Be with that for a moment. Thank you. I'm going to tap the bell. Feel free to come back to the here and now in this moment. You can open your eyes whenever you're ready. Thank you so much for the mindful moment, everybody. If you're just joining us, welcome to Right Here, Right Now. This is my presentation, training, review of mindfulness. And I want to start off by saying that mindfulness is something that we all have. And as we develop and practice more and more of how being more self-aware, we can benefit from that. Because when we were all little kids, when you were a baby, you were very present. You used mindfulness all the time. You cried when you needed something. And when that need got met, you felt better. everything was working. And over time, we've kind of gotten away from asking for our needs or finding ways to be present with that, or we've repressed or suppressed our needs. And so mindfulness is, you can call it what you want. It's basically a way of learning how to be more self-aware in a gentle way, being present right now again, and just really noticing. Think of mindfulness like if you took a highlighter, you take a highlighter and you highlight notes on paper or in a book, something that you really wanted to jump out. Mindfulness is a window into that practice where every breath of your experience has a possibility that things can really jump out, whether that's our thoughts, feelings, emotions, and actions, and just knowing to be aware of that and be with that. With mindfulness, we're trying not to hold on to the past because the past can keep you from being in the present. With mindfulness, we try and catch our thoughts. Am I worrying about the future? Am I worrying about my job? Is that kind of thinking can take you out of the present moment. There's nothing wrong with having a thought or a concern, but through mindfulness, we pay attention to, well, am I cycling through that concern? And then if I am, is it changing how I'm thinking and feeling and creating emotions? And so with mindfulness, we practice to be non-judgmental of my own thought and thinking, and to fully be here now with full acceptance as much as possible. And with that, there's a sense of letting go. And like I said, this is a practice. When we learn it in baby steps, poco a poco, being gentle on ourselves, being mindful. Mindfulness is a superpower. I want to share a video with you, and we can talk about that a little bit.
You may have heard this word mindfulness. It's become something of a buzz phrase of late. I'm going to give you one simple, serviceable definition, which is this. Mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it. Imagine how useful this could be. Just as an example, driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic. How do you normally react? I think most of us, we normally react by having a thought, which is, I'm pissed. And then what happens next? You immediately, habitually, reflexively inhabit that thought. You actually become pissed. There's no buffer between the stimulus and your reaction. With just a little bit of mindfulness, in that same situation, you might notice my chest is buzzing, my ears are turning red, I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts, I'm getting angry. But you don't necessarily have to act on it and chase that person down the road, screaming at them with your kids in the back of the car thinking you've gone nuts. Now, you might be thinking, don't I need to get angry sometimes? Aren't I justified? I would say yes, but probably not as much as you think. The proposition here is not that you should be rendered by mindfulness into some lifeless, non-judgmental blob. The proposition is that you should learn how to respond wisely to things that happen to you, rather than just reacting blindly. And that, my friends, is a superpower. How do you get it? The way to get it is through meditation. I believe that meditation and mindfulness are the next big public health revolution. In the 1940s, if you told somebody you were going running, they would have said, who's chasing you? But then what happened next? The scientists swooped in, they showed that physical exercise is really good for you, and now all of us do it, and if we don't, we feel guilty about it. And that's where I think we're headed with mindfulness and meditation. It's going to join the pantheon of no-brainers like brushing your teeth, eating well, and taking the meds your doctor prescribed for you. Let me just close by saying, mindfulness is not going to solve all of your problems. It's not going to render your life a nonstop parade of unicorns and rainbows. Nonetheless, this is a superpower, and one that is accessible by you immediately.
Just to share a little bit about some of the things that that video talked about. There was a part in the video where it said, like, yeah, anger is a good thing to have. And the thing with mindfulness is, yeah, you can have your feelings, but with mindfulness, we're learning how to navigate that feeling and not be there for too long, because the research shows that the more that you're in that discomfort, which is putting a stress response on the body, that's actually shifting and turning into something. And research shows that the longer we stay in that, whether it's, you want to call that a funk or just really being angry, and you expand that over time into the next day and thinking about that thing and still having that feeling about that, what happens is that that dis-ease becomes a disease. And this is where we're learning to notice, what am I thinking about? What am I getting angry about? And how can I reflect on that? What is that about? So this is what I call your own homework, heart work. You know, whenever you're feeling irritated or frustrated based on thoughts, based on narratives of the past, which have become the belief system, there's nothing wrong with that. However, if it's getting the best of you over time, then there's a way to recognize that and find, how can I release that? And so with mindfulness, this is a practice about learning to let go. Learn from it. Learn, forgive, forget, so that you can fully be here. It doesn't mean that that anger, whatever the circumstance or situation is, you might be upset with somebody. Well, yeah, you can have those thoughts and feelings, but how do we take that anger to be a motivator to have a conversation about what was hurtful, if that were the situation? So mindfulness is an opportunity to, what's going on in me? How do I step back for a moment, take a deep breath, right, get myself regulated, and then take action in a way that is helpful, that is compassionate, that is in a way that I want to communicate something, whether it's communicating with myself or communicating with others. How do I be mindful about that? So when I'm thinking about that, going into this next slide, mindfulness creates space by taking a breath. Something happens, we usually have, or I still have it sometimes. A situation happens, I hear a voice in my head that wants to say something kind of mean-spirited. Well, here's where I use that highlighter that I was talking about earlier. Here's where I highlight, oh, I just caught myself. No, I don't want to do that, because that was my past way of thinking and doing. Let me first take care of my own needs, notice what's going on inside of me, taking a deep breath, be with it for a moment, and then respond. So it says on here on the slide, changing impulse reactions to thoughtful responses, right? Without mindfulness, we have a stimulus, which is that knee-jerk reaction that gets excited, the cortisol raises up, and that's a natural phenomena. It's a human phenomena that are in our brains. We have this thing, the amygdala, which is, whoo, warning, 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 warning. Well, sometimes we take a warning situation that maybe doesn't really need to be, we are safe, and so that I can let something go, right? So we have that warning, we have the reaction, it involves some stress. The stress hormones get riled up, right? But we want to make sure that we don't stay riled up in that stress hormone, because over time, that's where it does wear and tear on the body, right? So with mindfulness, we have the stimulus, the natural response. Then we recognize, oh, something's happening. Let me take a mindful moment. Let me take a pause. Let me slow my roll. Let me take a breath. And let me respond differently in some way. Therefore, less stress. Ooh, this is a great setup for ultimate health, because you're being mindful of how you're navigating whatever the wave is, whatever the circumstance or situation is, right? There's a way to be mindful about it, to not let outside circumstances take over inside reactions. Therefore, we have an inside response differently, right? Moving on to the next slide. So mindful body is to bring awareness to what happens in your mind and how that affects your body, your thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations. Believe it or not, thoughts, thoughts create feelings and emotions 90% of the time. We have some innate feelings. I have a gut feeling about something that doesn't feel right. That's a little bit different. But we have this narrative where thoughts have an association, we give it meaning, it now has a story, it's my narrative, and that could be something that takes us into a place where we're following it down the path that's creating a lot of energy that's affecting our body over time. Okay? So the purpose is not to control your mind, but it's to transform it. It's to be aware of those sensations and mindfully do something about that, right? Mindful listening. So there's two kinds of listening. There's the internal listening and there's the external listening. Internal listening would be like, am I judging myself? I had a couple of those thoughts today, kind of getting ready for this presentation. It used to be way worse, right? Because I have this little inner critic. I overthink things, right? And I have to catch it. I have to highlight and go, don't worry about it. I got this, right? Am I judging others? Am I thinking about the past, which is now bringing into this moment? Or am I wondering or worried about the future? That's all internal dialogue listening. And so with mindful listening, we're learning to recognize those and just gauge how long am I in that? And is it necessary, right? Then there's the external listening. Am I really in the environment? Am I really being here present, right? Am I really listening to the person and just taking on how they look, how the words are coming out, and really just engaging in what they're sharing in their experience? How am I really listening to the music? How is it making me feel inside? How's the external creating something on the internal, right? This would be mindful listening. So the mindful moment, quiet breathing, anchor, we did experience that. And what I want to do, so we have the anchor, which is really just kind of getting grounded, right? And what that is like, because our minds wander in thoughts, we can multi-mind and have a couple of different things happening. We could be thinking about one thing and doing something else, right? And so we want to, and if we're multi-minding, that's not being as present as fully possible in the here and now, staying on task with that one situation or circumstance or whatever that business is that one is doing. So the practice of taking a mindful moment or meditation or silent moment or quiet moment helps the brain start to develop a practice of noticing if I'm multi-doing something in my thoughts and how to bring that back in. Because maybe all that multi-thinking and doing could be informed by anxiety or sad thoughts or feelings, okay? And there's really nothing wrong with those, but then it's also to be aware of like, oh, am I feeling anxious? What do I need to do about that? How do I regulate that? Oh, I'm having some real sad feelings. When am I needing to regulate that, right? I like to say you can have your feelings and have your experience, but how long are we there for? How frequent are we having these on a daily to daily? So as we practice having a mindful moment, we develop the skill of recognizing things and being more present. And so by doing a quiet, silent, mindful moment, you're actually developing your brain the capacity to develop that highlighter of noticing all the nuances that you are experiencing and then picking and choosing what's going to be most present for you in the here and now. And so that's through breathing. We did this earlier. We practiced the mindful gratitude. I want to do a mindful heart compassion brief meditation to transition into self-care. So I'm going to invite you again to just close your eyes for a moment. If you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, you can do a soft gaze, however, whatever feels comfortable for you. No judgment. Just take care of yourself. Notice your breath as you just be with the breath for a few moments, as you're anchoring in and grounding in with breath, weeding out the thoughts, bringing oxygen to the mind as part of the practice. And then as you're breathing in, mindful heart compassion. Open up the heart space and think of someone who's having some challenges in their life. And imagine your heart connecting to theirs. Send them a loving thought, a compassionate thought, whatever you think they could use in their experience right now. Give this away. This is your offering of unconditional love. Be with that breath for a moment as you anchor in that thought. And next, I'd like to invite you to take a self-care moment. Imagine in your mind's eye, keep your eyes closed. We're doing a soft gaze. Stay here for this moment. Imagine what would self-care look like to you. What is your self-care? See it in your mind's eye. See it to be it. Name it and claim it. How are you going to take care of yourself for the rest of the day? How are you going to take care of yourself in this moment? Whatever images come up, be with those. Breathing in and breathing out. Thank you for that self-care moment. You can open your eyes whenever you feel ready, and we'll transition into the next slide. So when thinking about self-care, so mindfulness is a way of just noticing your thoughts, how to slow things down, how to get quiet for a moment and really just notice whatever may arise and see and be with that. That is one way of having a self-care practice. That is one of my self-care practices. So we're going to talk about what can self-care look like for you. The basics of self-care: sleep, rest, proper diet, exercise, right? What are the components of self-care? We have personal, we have physical, spiritual, nutritional. And how about what would professional look like at home now that we're having the shelter in grace, shelter in place? What does that look like creating space in your day, setting boundaries and limits? Whether it's personal, or what would having someone that you can check in with, where you can share a personal check-in with somebody, or if there's group check-ins, or do you, even that we have to work from home now, what managers, supervisors, or directors can you call upon to get a need met? And these are ways of setting up boundaries for yourself, and then being really consistent with those boundaries, and to normalize, because now that a lot of people are experiencing, like, I know for me, the first week of shelter in place, it took me a week to come through. I was so distracted because it disrupted my normal program. Even though I tried getting up, functioning, I got up and I was like, okay, what am I doing now? I was really in a fog. And it took some time to move through that. And so for my own self-care, I really have a routine of a new normal routine that I've adjusted to. And that's what I love about the human condition. We have the power to adjust and find what works for me. And mindfulness and having a self-care routine helps you develop that, right? Okay, so when we're thinking about shelter and grace, I'm going to get moving through so we can get to some breakout groups and have some discussions around some of the self-care practice. Here are some examples of self-care. Having a structure and a consistent routine is so important. We need that to normalize the new normal, right? And whatever is normal doesn't mean really anything. It's an association to like an old pattern. But like I said, we can adjust to new patterns, right? And can that be okay, right? Having maybe a morning positive affirmation. And some of these are just ideas to throw out there that might be helpful to you. When I say about morning positive affirmation, I know for me, affirmations work for me. And I have this one, like, I wake up and I always wake up saying, yes, let's do this, yo. And I have this other one, like, watch me work, right? And every day when I do that, before I go into my meditation practice, it just kind of sets the tone. There's a level of optimism in there. And what I like about that for me is that it sets the tone for my day. And if I think about things that I'm excited about, those endorphins are running all over the place. Those are natural healers, right? So finding ways to have that to start your day, to be thinking about how could you start your day to kind of set the tone, like, I'm going to name it and claim my day is going to look like this. This is what my intention is, right? Very powerful. Having a mindful moment with a visualization exercise, morning exercises, finding maybe a link on Zoom or YouTube, Facebook, or YMCA. Asking, this was from a daily quarantine question that came out shortly after we were in shelter in place from a woman here in Oakland that she put on Nextdoor. And I love this. Who am I checking in on or connecting with today? As part of my self-care, it's so important for us to have these social connections and check up on people and make sure that they're doing well, right? What could your new office look like? What's your calm workspace with inspired images? What could that look like? I know for me in my space, which looks a lot like my office at a school site, I have a lot of plants around, helps with the oxygen. I have a lot of low lighting, the sense of calmness. I have a water fountain, and I love to hear the sound of water. But what would that look like for you? Something to consider. What's your calm space that helps you regulate the body system? What kind of self-care breaks do you take throughout the day? How about this? Learning something new. Learning something new is great for the brain. This is great because it takes you out of the normalcy of something that you already know, but challenging yourself, to learn something new during this time. What would that be like? What would that look like? Taking advantage that you could do something new for yourself that you are interested in, right? Whether that's creating art, new kinds of art, music, dance, reading, but how do you express yourself? How do you open up to new parts of yourself? Like, wow, I've always thought about this, but maybe I could implement that now, right? Okay, so we're gonna, I have some guiding questions here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna transition. We don't have as much time as I would like, but maybe we could take up to, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 minutes. And in the breakout groups, what we'll do is we'll go through some of these guiding questions here. So you could read these, and I believe this copy might make it into the chat box. But just take a moment to think about how do you feel about how you're currently doing your self-care practices during shelter in place. Yes.
Can you unshare your screen? And I think we have a small enough group. I think we'll just stay here as a whole group and go through your questions. So I can pop in question number 1 into the chat.
Oh, great.
And you can read that out.
Yep.
Okay.
So that question is, how do you feel about how you're currently doing your self-care practices during shelter in place? Would anyone like to share how that's going for you?
So you can share and just unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Please, 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 please listen to all these things, because I thought, I had a very adolescent thought, thinking I'm never going to get sick. I'm taking all the precautions necessary. I walk around with like Lysol spray. I don't, because I was late to the Lysol party and don't have any. But I ignored most of them. And now I'm sick. So do it. Don't leave it, sleep, stay hydrated, rest, express. Don't let everything bottle in. Just express, check in with people, do things that feel good, get outside. I didn't do it. I'm not judging myself, but I'm just encouraging all of you to hear this with new ears and an expanded mind. Mm-hmm. Because I know sometimes I was like, oh, whatever, meditation. And now I would really encourage everybody, print it out, put it in front of you wherever you see it every day, because you are more important than anybody else. So just so thank you, Lance, for inspiring me. And I may pop in and out, but thank you. And everybody stay safe. Please stay safe for yourself and for others around you. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Does anybody else want to share on this question, or do you feel called to another question? Is there?
I was just going to say, hi, I'm Christina.
Hi, Christina.
I have been really inconsistent in my mindfulness practice, and every time I'm like shocked, for some reason shocked at how much of a difference it makes. Even in this setting here where we're in Zoom and it's a little weird to look at a screen and close your eyes, but like 2 minutes, and after that, like my whole body changed. And I know that because I've done it so many times, but I appreciate you bringing up again the importance of it being a consistent practice, because it shouldn't be this like oh yeah, mindfulness. Like I really want it to be, a part of my day. So I appreciate you for saying that.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing.
I could share. Hi, Lance. My name's Amy. Thank you so much for what you're sharing with us. My husband and I have found an old 1997 yoga tape. It's actually a DVD, but that we put into our VHS DVD player, which we still have. And we do that yoga tape every day for an hour. And it's so nice. We laugh during it because it's very cheesy, 1997. But we also get really still. We do very gentle stretching, and that has made a huge difference in our connection and just in our strength, physical strength and emotional and spiritual strength. So it's cheesy but fun.
Yeah, no judgment. Thanks for sharing your experience. Do you, right? That's what we're all learning to do. How am I going to do me and take care of me? No judgment, and just be in it fully. Thank you for sharing. Does anybody else want to share on this question or the next question?
So we could go to question number 2, pop it up in the chat. What areas of self-care are you doing well in? And in what areas can you improve?
I'll share.
Okay.
Thank you, Emily.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Lance.
Hi, Emily.
Hi.
Hi.
So every day I wake up and I thank Source for letting me be a vessel to flow through. And I meditate every morning in my bed before I leave it. I find 21-day meditation super helpful. If you can lock in with one, you can find them on YouTube. Deepak and Oprah have a ton. I find that's pretty helpful. And I've been able to keep my practice of daily meditations going throughout the shelter in place, which really helps me ground and center before my feet even hit the floor.
Yeah.
One thing that's been challenging is I really love working out. I love the gym. I haven't been to the gym since none of you have been to the gym. So all of you have been. Yeah. So that's been a little challenging. I walk with my cat, but it's not as vigorous as walking, or running. But, I'm sure that I could probably pick up the pace, and I try and take walks when he naps because he gets a little annoyed when I leave
when he knows I'm walking and he's not. But yeah, so the exercise part, the physical heart increasing exercise is something that I've been missing since shelter in place has started.
Yeah. Emily, thank you for sharing. I wanted to say, and this is for everyone, I miss working out too. And I found an exercise class that I do. I'll disclose a little bit. My adult daughter teaches a low impact cardio class. And I've been doing that Monday through Friday. And I love it. So that's a way. So how do we find bringing the gym into our homes, right? You can do things, you can stand up in your living room and you can do something to get your heart rate up, right? I believe it's possible, you know? So find that. And there's a lot of great Facebook links, YouTube links that you could follow along. What I like personally about joining that class is that I feel socially connected instead of doing like my own one-on-one workout. And we need that social connection, even if it's from distance. We need to hear other people through monitor, you know. The brain remembers it. This is an innate connection that we can utilize. And then what I wanted to say about the meditation, there's a zillion 1-minute guided meditations that you can follow along. There's thousands of them. And what you can do is, if this works for you, is to do one of those and then, find one that's like 5 minutes. And the guided meditations, which are nice because it kind of reminds you of where to be in this present moment. And then experiment without a guided meditation and set a timer for 1 to 3 minutes. Try that for a week or two and then try to expand. But just be really gentle, no judgment, and just be in the experience of it, right? Just like we know, the more you practice something, the better you get at something. Same thing with silent meditation. Thank you for sharing, Emily.
So, in interest of time, we have 4 more minutes. So I'm going to pop this last question in. If you guys can respond via writing, and then I'll go ahead and do a closeout while you guys are doing that. And maybe Mika, you can capture a couple and read them out after I'm done.
I also want to thank Lance for being with us today and for helping keep us calm, help us refocus and center ourselves, and just continue to take this and work with it even after the shelter in place is over.
Yeah.
It's going to get crazy because we don't know what normal is anymore. So that next level is where we're really going to have to take this and hold on to it. So thank you so much, Lance, for being with us and for guiding us into some meditations and actually like snatching us up during the talk and having us do them. That was great.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Lance, again for taking us through that. And next week we'll probably just do a follow-up on a lot of things that Lance was talking about. We want to get your voice in here on how you guys are feeling, how you're coping, and what things that you're dealing with that this space can be more supportive for you in. I have a couple of links that I want to share with you guys. Ayaba created a link for freelancers, so you guys can update your freelance tasks here on the link. We have a guide for financial and survival during the COVID crisis that I will pop in here. That's a really good reference that Amy shared with us. If you guys have not applied for the PUA, it opened up yesterday, and I heard it was pretty much locking people out yesterday. So please apply for that, for the pandemic unemployment assistance for all freelancers. And if you are a movement teacher, Luna Dance has a lot of really great professional development trainings going on. They're doing one for elementary age kids coming up most recently, but also just stay in touch with their site because they're constantly doing professional development for them. We're going to send out a survey that's going to ask you guys what you guys would like to utilize this space for next week. We've done back-to-back speakers in the past 2 weeks with Rebecca and with Lance. So next week we'll be doing more of a check-in session and a session that will get your guys' voice more involved. So we want to hear about what you guys want to utilize this space for. So we'll be sending out a survey for that as well. Let's open up the last minute. Does anybody else have any announcements that they would like to add into this of upcoming things in their lives?
I would just like to say before I go that I put my email in the chat box. And if anybody wants a follow-up call to talk about mindfulness or meditation or self-care, I'm happy to chat with you for 20 minutes on the phone and support you. This is my offering to our community. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lance.
Thank you so much, Lance.
All right. Wonderful team. You guys all look beautiful. Thanks for sharing the space with us this week.
Place. Next Wednesday. We'll be
next Wednesday. Same time, same channel.
Thank you for coming, Sammy.
Thanks, everybody.
Rebecca, Amy, Melina, Christina, Liz. I just like calling everyone's names out.
Yep, that's important.
Until next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh,
Thank you, everybody.
Be well.
Speaking of self-care, I'm going to go for a walk.